social conditions of the time, the societal conditions of the time, did not provide for the needs of, let's call them citizens for want of a better word, for the needs of those who were here. And out of that need comes an organization like the Order of Sons of Italy. By the way, that type of organization has similarities in Italian places of origin. There are local benefit societies that are created that match the services and such precisely of what comes to be known in North America as a benevolent society. So it's not like this is the reinvention, a new invention. It's rather a reinvention of an existing idea or ideal. And it serves an enormously important function. A mutual benefit society, is an insurance policy that you take out when somebody needs it. You provide them with the resources to survive until people can get back on their feet. The Order of Sons of Italy also created a so-called mortuary or funeral fund, so that if somebody died, there would be the means to bury them properly. It's an important aspect of Roman Catholicism, of the society of origin. So all of these services then at the beginning, under the umbrella of bringing the group together to socially, right, because that too was an important function. Under that umbrella, using the mutual benefit ideal as a way of doing so, as a means for doing so, grew within the community. Generally, places of employment for Italians arriving are outside of the city, but there's a great fire in Toronto at the beginning of the last century, right? Lots of Italians arrived to help in the reconstruction of the city in that great fire. There's an enormous infrastructure development in the city at the beginning of the last century. They're not called streetcars, and they're called street railways, and so on and so on, right? That needs human beings to dig up the beds for the tracks, and it's essentially the same as building a railway outside of the city. So they arrive for that purpose. Toronto builds much of its sewer and other infrastructure, expands it and develops it in that time period. Well, there's lots of Italian laborers involved in all of that. So the city itself, at given moments in time, can be a magnet for Italian laborers, right? St. John's Ward is a central receiving area, and for obvious reasons. It's also cheek by jowl with Union Station, with the main railway station, main means of communication into and out of the city. So St. John's Ward, which was a miserable environment for the time. And again, it's interesting to reflect on local prejudices against the inhabitants of St. John's Ward. By the way, it's not just Italians, right? It's a very mixed, very diverse community, ranging from people of African descent, people of native descent, people of Greek and Japanese and Orient, whatever. It's an enormously diverse community or neighborhood. And of course, one of the reasons why it is, in quotation marks, attractive for new arrivals to the city is because it's relatively cheap. From the closing of the ward, when the ward began to be destroyed, really, when they started building the hospitals and such, from about 1910 to the post-war period, right? Most of those who were in the ward originally moved westward to what we now understand as, although there was an original settlement there, it grows enormously before the Second World War, but this movement from St. John's Ward. And then, of course, the post-war migration, which for Italians in Canada is the most important historical reality. The post-war migration uses College Street as a jumping-off point for its spread across the rest of the city. And the spread is effectively College Street northward, as far as Steeles, and then, of course, quite early on, surprisingly early, into Woodbridge and what we now understand as the city of Vaughan and those settlements. But that whole corridor from College Street up Bathurst, let's say Bathurst on the one side and Ossington on the other, Dufferin on the other, that whole corridor is settled by Italians, effectively post-Second World War.